Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to my whiteboard pop-up. Today it's Wednesday. It's a wonderful day. Not too humid. Yesterday was crazy here in Georgia. But hey, just wanted to kind of do something a little off topic, but something that's a little different than what I've kind of done in the last couple of videos, because I want to be able to inspire someone that is, perhaps trying to break into the music industry, or someone that's trying to, start a business. And I kind of want to use my backstory with kind of my opportunity to work with Tech N9ne, Aaron Yates, and just kind of walk you through what it took for me to kind of get from point A to point B, and kind of be able to give you some pearls and gems so that you can see that these kind of things are possible. You just have to believe in yourself. All right. So as you can see, I have this is kind of like show and tell kind of. But I have a plaque here, and of course my first album that I've done. It's still in the original packaging, and I'll show you here in a second. But so anybody that wants to break into the music business, and in a way this kind of relates to anybody's quest to start in any kind of business. So music business is no different from if you're trying to open up a laundromat or car wash or whatever the case may be. So it's going to be, different, but in some ways similar in terms of how you market and how you drum up traffic and exposure and promote your business. So there's a lot of similarities there. So how I got my start with Tech N9ne. Sorry about if the camera's moving here. So how I got my start with Tech N9ne is, this was back in 2001, I believe, 2002. And at the time, I was staying at an apartment complex called South Fork Apartments in Olathe, Kansas. And right off of I-35, anybody that has ever stayed in Johnson County, it's really it borders like Missouri. Literally, it's like within 15-20 minutes to the border. And so at the time, I had I was kind of going through this thought of, man, I want to be able to really pursue music, because I had, prior to that, I had did some music, just kind of like some little demo stuff. I remember having an old Casio keyboard, and how to kind of have those default beats and stuff on there, and so and then of course at the time there were like some computer programs that they had, like Acid Pro or something like that, and very, very dated kind of stuff. And so I knew I being a creative person, I was like, I want to do music, you know what I'm saying? And so but wasn't exactly sure how that was going to happen. I just put that positive energy out there that this was something that will happen. And so I've just kind of learned over the years, when you put that positive energy out there, you, in a way, you become a magnet to start attracting things to you. Sometimes in my 46 years, I've learned to not so much focus on the how, but you just focus on the what. What is that thing that you're trying to do? And then the how will somehow figure its way out. for you. You know, you'll begin attracting certain opportunities to you, certain people, and you know, you'll get those confirmations along the way. And so, you know, I knew I wanted to do music. I wanted to do something a little bit more than, you know, what I have been doing. And so, so I just started researching like online and just trying to find some videos at this point, or not videos, but studios. And I had purchased, you know, so I started purchasing like equipment. So like the first piece of equipment I got was a Korg Triton, which was kind of like, you know, industry standard at that time. So I think I might have paid like, I don't know, $2,100 for that. And so, you know, I just started, you know, reading up on how to use it, and, you know, just kind of creating my own tracks and beats and stuff like that. And so, you know, after I had enough material, you know, I said, you know, because I started writing, you know, whether it's like different, you know, hooks or different concepts or ideas that I had in terms of the music. And so, you know, I said, well, I want to be able to, like, you know, record, you know, put this stuff into a sound recording. And so I started researching certain, you know, studios that were relatively close. And so I found 5150 Studios. Shout out to Will the Weirdo, and a few other people that have worked out of that studio in Lawrence, Kansas. And also shout out to the late Keith Loneker. So anyway, so now here's the crazy thing. So when you put it out there that, you know what, I want to do music or whatever that thing is, you know, God, the universe, however you wish to describe, you know, I don't want to alienate anybody, but those things will begin to shift, and you don't have to figure out the how. So I went up to the studio, and you know what's crazy is prior to I went up there, Tech N9ne was really, you know, who everybody looked up to in terms of, you know, he was a, you know, a hometown hero in terms of, you know, wow, this person made it. And, you know, he's, at the time he was, I want to say that he was signed to Perspective Records, I think, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's label. And so, you know, he was really the one example that was repping, you know, the Midwest, and, you know, just killing it in terms of, you know, his brand and his, you know, his hip hop. And so so anyway, I went up to the studio and I said, you know, and when I was driving up there, I was like, man, it'd be kind of cool to, you know, get Tech N9ne on one of my records, right? So again, speaking these things into existence, right? You know, sometimes that's all it takes. And went up to the studio, and I meet Will Wilson, who's a weirdo. Shout outs to you. Really good friend of mine to this day. And whose picture or plaque did I see on the wall? Tech N9ne. Now, I had no clue that prior to me going up there that they had worked with him, and I think they did some work on when he was with like Nut House back in the day. Will had they kind of came up in the same area, you know, working on different projects and things like that. And I think he worked on like did some of the engineering and producing for his Angelic album. So there was like a plaque on the wall, several things. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then, so I said, hey, you know, I again, I don't know anything about the music business. I'm green about the whole thing. And I said, you know what? I want to be able to try this thing, right? And I have some material, and, you know, I want to be able to upload it, and, I want to be able to get it distributed to many different places, whether it's in a CD form or online. Again, I have no clue on how this is going to work. I just know that, you know, this is kind of what I want to accomplish. So, we worked out a time to, start, recording some of my material. Again, I wanted to, originally I just wanted kind of to work out doing a single first, because I didn't want to invest a whole lot of money in, producing a whole album. And so, I said, well, so I got back to my apartment at South Fork, and so I went to go pay my rent. I don't know, this must have been like a few days after I went up to the studio at 5150. And I went to go pay my rent, and, I was talking to one of the girls there that I had known, because I've been there for, a couple of years at this point. And, just let them know, hey, this is, something I'm working on, and it's crazy. I was at the studio, and they had worked with Tech N9ne, and the crazy thing is, she was like, I actually know Tech N9ne. Like, what? And so I'm just like, okay, what's going on here? This is getting spooky at this point. So I was like, really? Because I have this track. I don't know if he's gonna like it or not. It's something I produced, and I have a kind of a hook that I came up with, and some verses that I wrote. Would love to get him on there. So she was like, well, I'll reach out to him and set something up. Man, fast forward a week later, I think I talked with, well, actually, no, I take that back. A couple days later, I talked with this guy. I give her my phone number, and I talked with Tech on the phone. And I was like, hey, I'm a fan of your music, and, this is what I'm working on. Would love to, have you get on a project. I'm a new producer. And so, he said, yeah, so, we met up, I don't know, it must have been like a sports bar or something like that in Olathe. He actually drove down, which was really cool. And so we worked out whatever the deal was in terms of, his fee, and gave him the track. And he hit me back. He's like, yeah, I'm going to, this is hot, I'm going to do it. And so that just kind of gave me just so much, when something is for you, things will just open up. Like, you don't really have to do a whole lot. Everything just kind of falls into your favor, if you will. Even if it may be something that, maybe it may not be, God's will for you that you do this, God could still, use this in some kind of way that will benefit him. And so, I said, okay. So I was like, at this point, I'm nervous. I'm like, wow, this is really happening, so, so we scheduled a time, and went to the studio at 5150. I met Travis, Ogwin there, who's the co-founder of Strange Music, his partner, his manager. Tech showed up, of course, with them, and we laid down the first track, man. And I mean, you want to talk about like just smiling the whole time. I'm just like sitting there, just how you kind of have that out of body experience, like wow, all of this happened in a matter of a month. Just me putting out the idea. Wow, it'd be nice if I had an opportunity to work with Aaron, and it happened. And I was just like, so I'm driving home after the session, and I'm just like, so if you look on my Facebook page, you'll actually see that picture that we took together. That was actually, what was that, back in 2002. And so that is, I should, thanks sis, I should do a documentary. I know, isn't that crazy? And, so I'm just cheesing, right? Just like, okay, well, what have I got myself into? If you're not prepared and ready, that's what they always say, be prepared, for those things to come. And so, luckily I started, trying to learn about the business and those sorts of things. And so, So I said, well, so I get home. So I'm like, so at this point, I'm just excited, right? So I just start hammering out more content again, more music, not knowing like what I'm going to do with that. I'm just still focused on the single that I'm doing with it, and had a chance to work with Schizo too. He was on the single as well, called "Don't Hate on Me," which is crazy, and and so again, not knowing like okay, well here I have the actual song. Like, what am I gonna do now? I don't know anything about like marketing. How do I get this on the radio station? I'm green at this point. I'm just trying to learn. Learn as I go through trial and error. And sometimes in business, with your passion, that's kind of what you have to do. It's if you're going to fail, you want to fail forward. And so that's how you learn and you perfect what didn't work, and you just keep navigating through it. And so, of course, it's kind of hard to get on radio. A lot of those stations are owned by, major corporations. KPRS at the time, they were open to. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I remember if they played my record or not, but they may have. But other than that, there's. I don't think at the time there wasn't like any streaming services out there. There may have been, but so anyway, so I said, well, okay. So I started researching online. Well, how do I get my record out there, right? So I said to myself, well, how do I get in front of like Tech's fans? And so I said, well, let me go online. Let me go to his website, and he was actually about to go on tour. He was in the middle of tour. He was on his Absolute Power tour after he left Perspective Records, and he formed Strange Music. That's when he started his own label, Strange Music, and he came out with his independent project, Absolute Power. I mean, that thing was. I think he had like several songs in rotation in Kansas City. Like, everybody knew his work. And so I was like, okay. Now at this time, I'm still working a 9 to 5, right? So I'm thinking, well, I can't travel during the week, because I'm doing contract work. I don't know, even they don't give you days off, So I'm like, well, let me look at the calendar, right? Let me see what I can do, to where I can work my schedule with whatever his touring schedule was. And so I said, okay, well, I'm only going to be able to do weekends, right? I can leave after work Friday, or maybe if I come in early, I'll leave, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. And then I said, well, let me also take a look at the region, right? So at the time, he was doing mainly in the Midwest, which was perfect. So I said, okay, I can drive, 3 to, 7 hours, to get there. I think when I was really hitting it hard, I think I was driving to Missouri. I was, keep in mind, I'm still in Kansas. So I'm driving to Missouri, I'm driving to Iowa, I'm driving to Nebraska, I'm driving to, I think St. Louis might have been the furthest I drove. I'm trying to think of some. Iowa, of course. Texas. We drove to Texas. A partner of mine drove down to Texas to sell some units. Dallas. Oklahoma. I think like 5 or 6 states, and there may have been like multiple like cities. Like, we'll hit one, and I, like I said, I printed out his tour schedule, so I just followed him where I could go, on the weekends that I could take off. And so I had pressed up, I don't know, like 5,000 singles or something like that, which is the red one in the back. And so I would just stand out, and I would show up like an hour, 2 hours early before the line started showing up, and just start hitting people up in the line, charging like $5 for the single. And man, them things flew off like hotcakes, man. That was my first taste of like, wow, I actually brought a product to market and actually leveraged, and it was just it was just awesome that he was already on tour. So this was an opportunity for me to get in front of his fans and actually sell the single. Now, that's where you're green, right? Sometimes you're not thinking about the politics behind that, right? Because you got to think about it. They're also selling their own merchandise within the concert, right? So Travis wasn't too happy about that. Tech was cool with it because I would assume that because I'm promoting him, and the fact that I paid him his fee to hop on the track, and but I think Travis was looking at it from a business standpoint that I'm moving units on my end as an independent producer, but I'm also taking away money from him, being able to sell his text, whether it's T-shirts or hats or CDs, those sorts of things, which I totally understand. And so, what was a blessing sometimes, sometimes, when it may feel like you're infringing on, or you don't understand the politics of things, sometimes people will step in on your behalf. And I have to give shouts out to Keith Lonergan, late Keith Lonergan. He had passed, I want to say a couple years ago from cancer. And he used to play NFL. He was a graduate of KU. And he went on to do movies, actually. He did stuff with like George Clooney. He did stuff with Samuel L. Jackson, Lakeview Terrace. You may have seen that movie. Stuff with J-Lo, George Clooney, those sorts of things. Usual Suspects, he was in that movie. Superbad, I think he was in that movie. So, he even after his movie career, he went on to, do other stuff. And he also managed his studio along with Will, who's a good friend of mine still today. And so he actually intervened on my behalf and spoke to Travis, said, look, you can't expect him to pay your artist this kind of money and not allow him to recoup, what he paid in, plus, he's out there promoting your artist, so, he was able to really, step in on my behalf, and that was really nice for him to do that. I'm sure Travis wasn't too happy about that, but I don't think Tech had a problem with it. Even when I remember this was in Missouri, and like I said, I would just pop up. I think over time they just at some point when they see your work ethic, where I'm spending 3-4 hours just working the line at all of his different shows, at some point they can't deny you, and they have to show you respect. Like it even got to the point where I would, security would let me in because, oh, hey, Zeke, what's going on, man? Man, you everywhere we go, you just pop up, and, just they understood the hustle. So I was able to gain some respect, being able to sit up in VIP, just really, hang out with, Tech at his shows, I remember one time he asked me, how, how's the crowd? Are they responding to, so, those sorts of things just made me feel good that I'm not just this guy that's in the way. Like, wow, this guy is actually out there, promoting his work. He didn't just, produce this film or produce this music project and just, let it figure itself out. He's actually out there hustling, CDs and things like that. So, man, I was able to like meet all of his like security team, man, and I just felt like I was part of that whole Absolute Power tour experience. Hobotone, he opened, I think, for Tech in somewhere in St. Louis. Um, man, Chris Calico, um, really cool people. I think I want to say Scatterman, something like that. I believe. Like I said, it's been a couple decades, but all these people showed me love, and just really, you know, gave they respected the hustle. I think over time, like I said in the beginning, Trav and them weren't, particularly happy, but I think they began to see, okay, wow, this guy, he's actually serious about his project. So anyway, so after that was done, like I said, I couldn't really do a whole lot after that. Like I said, I'm still maintaining my contracting job, and so I said, okay, well, what's the next move after this? So I have this single that I did with Tech. I'm trying to build up some buzz, and so I said, well, I didn't want it to end there. I said, well, why don't I create like a kind of a mixtape, if you will, or like of where I have various artists on there from the Midwest, and just kind of rep the city, kind of bring in those people like Hobotone and and really, like I said, 5150, Keith and Will, they were able to bring in talent that also works with them at their studio and have them be a part of my project. So it just worked out really well, and was able to produce my actual album, and BZP presents the Gumbo. So I came up with that name because I wanted to kind of describe kind of this concoction of music that I have on this project. I have rap music. I have I have R&B music. I have kind of like a pop reggae music on there, and just experimentation. And at the time, I was a huge fan of Timberland. You're probably going to hear, if you ever have a chance to go online and listen to some of the work, there's definitely a lot of influence of Timberland on there. He was one of my favorite producers, so I think that just kind of stuck. But yeah, I mean, I was just very excited to put this together, and just again, one thing after another happened. I was like, well, I wonder if there might be other opportunities to get maybe another feature on my project. And this is just crazy. Like, so there's a kind of a old school friend that my mom and my aunts all knew, because they grew up together. They went to the same school. Shout out to Frankie Wharton. Actually, my grandmother knew his grandmother, or his mother rather, and he actually played for Sounds of Blackness. I think he was doing percussion or something like that. And again, small world. You just never know. Like, who would have thought that you would have certain talent come out of Junction City. You know, even Kevin. Um, Gosh, I may be butchering his name. Wilmot, I think he won an Oscar with Spike Lee for Black Klansman. He came out of Junction City, you know, doing films, things like that. And so, you know, there's a lot of talent, you know, that people probably wouldn't even thought of. But anyway, so, you know, I spoke to Frankie, and I said, hey, I'm working on this project, and like I said, I was a huge fan of Sounds of Blackness already, with doing Optimistic and some of their other earlier hits. And so he said, well, I'm going to put you out. Here's Gary Hines's number, and I'll give him a call and let him know that you want to work together. At first, Gary had me get in touch with his manager, and we worked out the deal there. As far as their fee, again, I'm just putting out, hey, it would be nice. Again, I'm not in control of the how. That's God's domain, right? So I just knew that, hey, I'm just trying to put this project together, and man, I would love to, kind of leverage those kind of connections, and see if I can, if they would, like my work. Now, keep in mind, this is a 3-time Grammy group. They have been produced by Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. So there's already, a high standard. High standard. I'm a new producer. Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis produced Tech N9ne when he was signed to Perspective Records. So I'm, sometimes I just think, man, am I kind of in a space and time where, things are going to get over my head? But, if God's not going to put too much on you that you can't bear, if he knows that you can accomplish something, and that you've prepared for it, he's gonna guide you through that process. And so anyway, I had a track that I had worked on. It was just kind of, bare bones, a drum track, and I had sent that off to Gary Hines, who's the music director and of Sounds of Blackness. And so it was interesting. Like, he had called me. He was like, "So what key is this in?" And I have no idea. Because I did like a scratch vocal on it, and on that song, I Could Testify. And he called me. I'm not a musician. I don't know anything about. I just created the beat. Here's an idea. And so he was like, "Well, listening to it, I think it's like in the key of E or A or whatever the case may be." Shout out to Gary, if you ever get to watch this, man. I appreciate you so much for giving me the opportunity. But I sent him off the track, and he said, "Man, we love it. We're gonna do it." We worked out the the fee, and you want to talk about love. When I got the track back, not only were they gracious to take my song to a whole level that I didn't even anticipate. They added their infamous sounds, like their brass instrumentation to that. They added horns to my record. And I'm just like, man, they didn't have to do that. They did that out of love because of my relationship with Frankie. And so that was just an honor. Even still to this day, I still can't believe that God has blessed me with that opportunity in that moment of time, to be able to come up with these ideas and put things together. Again, not knowing anything about the music business. So got the track back. I mean, I'm just floored. And then I said, well, you know what? I was speaking to Will. I said, you know, we need to get, this would sound good with having a live bassist. And he was like, well, I have a live bassist that I know. Dude came down and just killed it. And there's the song. So everything was just kind of, you know, really coming together. My biggest thing was, well, you know, I'm an independent. I don't have, you know, the budget like most people would. And so I was like, well, but I still want to package it together to where it looks professional, you know. So I don't know if anybody can, if you could see this, right? Still has the wrapper on it, you know, because I got the idea from, you know, I would go into at the time, you know, my parents stayed in Topeka, Kansas, so, you know, Hastings was a huge kind of regional chain. And so, you know, at the time, and I think they still have these, they used to have what were called consignments. And so I said, well, I pressed up, you know, X amount of units. I went through this company called Dungeon Replication, and I basically put together the artwork. I paid a model to do a photo shoot to where she looked like she's, you know, eating gumbo or soup or whatever the case may be. Again, no formal training on marketing, just figuring this out as I go. And that's what I'm saying. This whole story is just to encourage you that you could do anything that you put your mind to. You just have to believe. And so, you know, so I pressed those up and I started, you know, going to all these stores, you know, and I made sure that I put, you know, all my features on the album so that when I went to, you know, whether it was Seventh Heaven in Kansas City, Missouri, if it was Hastings, some of these other, like Sam Goodies, I had my stuff in Sam Goodies at the time, you know, and, you know, my mom actually helped me maintain some of those accounts that I had in places where I couldn't really get to. So again, having family to support you, you know, is definitely a good thing. You know, because again, you're operating as a small label. You don't have, you know, you're not like the Interscopes or the RCAs, those sorts of things. So you have to do your guerrilla marketing. I printed up posters. You know, I had posters put up in different places. I tried to work the college circuit. I had some of my, you know, a lot of my music played on college stations, KSU, University of Kansas, you know, not a whole lot of major radio stations. Again, that's, you know, you're dealing with like, you know, major conglomerates at that point. And if you're not, you know, you got to typically pay for those things, and, you know, they're only trying to talk to major record labels anyway for that. So I was just trying to follow the same blueprint as, you know, say Tech did, where all of his was built organically. You know, that's why, you know, at that time, I think he was the number one touring artist, independent rapper. You know, he built his buzz just on the road, and I mean, and he still maintains that following today. You know, I follow him over time, and even today, his work ethic is just crazy, and I just gain so much knowledge from him, and just kind of following him and seeing how he's doing and how he's, you know, doing his retailing, or, you know, even at some of these concerts that he did, or these shows, like how they would do their marketing. You know, just learning, trying to learn the business, again, figuring it out as I go. And so anyway, you know, the one thing I will say is that I didn't fully recoup everything that I invested into the project, but I will tell you, what I have gained is a knowledge of the business and how to market and how to package a product. Sometimes there are other intangibles, other non-monetary things that sometimes we're always looking for. Okay, if I put in $20,000, I hope to get $30,000. When you're starting out, sometimes you may take a loss, but there's so many things of value that I think some people they don't think about that they're gaining in that experience, in that time. Just think about what you're learning in that process, right? So that next time, maybe it could be a different product that you're promoting. Okay, well, you use what you learned, prior, and that's what you do. You just kind of perfect what you do, because really, at the end of the day, all products are the same in terms of marketing, promotion. It's all the same model. I mean, there may be some one-offs, but for the same, but it's all the same. And so I did really good on the singles, like I said, but this was all underground. A lot of the units, CDs were, again, selling those at, different music shop sort of events, those sorts of things. They would let me come in there and set up tables, things like that. But I didn't have a huge marketing budget. All of this was just selling out the trunk of my car or, church, whatever the case may be. So it was a good first experience. Like I said, I don't look at it as a complete failure, but I don't look at it as a full success, but I don't also look at it as a complete failure. Again, there's a lot of things that I gained from that experience. And so like I said, this was just I wanted to kind of sit down and kind of do something a little bit different, just kind of share my story of how I got to work with, tech, and, just that whole experience of, bringing, your passion and love of whatever that may be, music, whatever the case may be, and you're bringing that to fruition. You're bringing that to market. And I think people just need to be able to see the raw and uncut. Sometimes when we listen to people or see people, it's when they've already arrived. We don't see the backstory, right? We don't hear about those things until they've made it, where they've, achieved that upper echelon of success. But oftentimes I think what a lot of celebrities, they don't, some of them don't keep it real. They don't want you to know about that gap in time where they were sleeping on their mom's couch and eating ramen noodles, or stuff was really hard and tough. But I think you have to share that, the good and bad, because people need to be able to see. It doesn't necessarily put a chink in your armor that somehow they're going to look at you different. But I think people need to see examples of that, wow, this person is relatable, right? They were able to, they didn't have a silver spoon. They started from ground zero to foster their dream, right? To garner their dream, and by any means necessary. And so I think there needs to be more stories about that, so that those are just good takeaways for people to see that, wow, Zeke went through this and that, and or whoever, and you know what, I can do this. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to put some skin in the game. You're going to have to invest a little money. Nothing venture, nothing gain. No risk, no reward. And I will say too, if you're trying to do something like this in terms of music, and let's say it doesn't work out, right? And let's say you are fortunate to get some features, or you've sold some units, you can now apply that to your brand, your overall brand, right? So don't look at what you've done if it didn't work out the way that you wanted as a complete loss, but because you could still rebrand yourself and leverage your experiences and who you've worked with, and be able to do other things. You know, you know, I was able to launch a web TV show. I was able to work on some film projects where I got some people of interest. So it's success is building blocks, and it doesn't happen overnight. So anyway, I just wanted to take this time just to explain the backstory and how I was able to uh, put this project together. And if you have any questions, if you're trying to get in music and you want to pick my brain, definitely I'm here. I do charge a consultation fee, so again, you're paying for my time in terms of what I've learned over the years and what I've been able to accomplish. So that's why I charge a consultation fee. So thank you again for watching this, and check it on the replay. Have a good day.